Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. 8:30. What is the date today? September 29th. Oh, wow. We only got today and tomorrow left in the month of September. So then we got October, November, December. So what is this? Last 2 days of the third quarter. We're stepping into the fourth quarter. Are you prepared? Are you ready? That's why we go through our Next Level University, to give you some more knowledge, some more information, give you a little bit of the shot in the arm that's going to keep pushing you to get to that next level, to do whatever it is that you want to achieve and accomplish. Today we're going to talk a little bit about listings. One thing we didn't do in Next Level University is we didn't cover the listing agreement. So I'm going to get into the listing agreement today. We're going to touch a little bit on what Jeff was talking about yesterday with media. So the media talking about different points. I have one other point to point out to you, just so you can see what is going on in the media and how things can be kind of skewed just a little bit. And you have to be prepared to work these talk tracks. We'll talk about selling in the shifting that we have of this market, especially positioning listings, since that's going to be our focus. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. If we have some time, we'll expand into creating a blueprint, but that'll probably take most of the time that we have today. So getting into, we're just going to jump right in. When you're talking about the media and the things that are going on there, you saw all the slides that were out there. You saw the slides that Jeff showed. Jeff showed these slides that it was clearly showing that the amount of foreclosures that they're saying, foreclosures double. Well, okay, well, we need a basis point to go off of. Doubled from what? So that should probably be your question that you're asking people. When people say, well, I hear foreclosures are going through the roof. And you say, compared to what? Compared to last year? Yeah, that might be more of a true statement. They may have doubled, close to doubled from last year. But compared to 2 years prior, they are a far cry from the amount of foreclosures. I mean, it's still like about 30% of what they were from 2 years ago. So, you have to understand, last year we were in a pandemic. Last year we had no foreclosures, a moratorium on foreclosures. And so we're going to start seeing more of that kind of talk, because that's how many of us hear from our buyers, I'm just going to wait until all these foreclosures hit. Or I'm just going to wait until the market crashes or dips. How many people are hearing that? We're hearing that. There's so many talk tracks to go on. Jeff went on and showed you the one about interest rates yesterday, and he shared the slides to the team. So if you need those, they are in your Google Drive. He shared them to the team, all the slides that he sent out. So we hear that all the time, and you're going to continue to hear things like this. Many overly confident sellers price their home too high. This was just in the Florida Realtors email that came out this morning. And when you read the article, I want you to pay attention to things like this. So many homes are setting their prices too high, trying to squeeze out every dollar from buyers who are willing to pay. But here's how much, but the market is seeing more price reductions. 9.4% of all listings had a price reduction in August, which is up from 8.6 in July. Oh my goodness, my home didn't sell in 7 days. What am I going to do? This is not end of the world. This is not what they're making it out to see, or making it out to what they want you to believe that it is. Yes, it went up. In May and June, price cuts stood at 7.7 and 7.8%. So it's up to 9.4% of the listings. So basically, 1 out of every 10 listings had to reduce their price to sell their home. 1 out of every 10 had to reduce their price to sell their home. That is the end of the world. We should just close up shop right now. Let's not list another home, because I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this is just, it's a far cry. What are we going to do? It's crazy, the things that are being skewed and the way that they're trying to portray this. So when you look at those numbers, it went from 0.7 out of every 10 homes, or 0.8 out of every 10 homes had to reduce their price. Now it's 1 out of every 10 homes that lists has to reduce their price to end up getting a sale. Seriously? If you go back, and I bet you can look at any other market that's out there, when you're looking at a balanced market, the numbers are probably at least 25%. 1 out of every 4 are going to have to reduce their price before they sell their home. Otherwise, it's taking more like a balanced market 6 months to sell a home, right? So we have to understand what we are looking at. When you look at the headline, overly confident sellers price their home too high. What do a buyer see? They see the headline. How many people go through and read the rest of the article? I don't know what the percentages are, but I do know that when you put a video out, they are 66% or 70% more likely to watch the video than they are to read the article. So you're getting 66%, 2 out of every 3 people that wouldn't have read the article will watch a video. So I don't know how that skews over to the numbers for the people that will actually read this article, but they see the headline and all of a sudden the headline is overly confident sellers, prices too high, homes are overpriced, they're having to reduce. So what are they going to be trying to do to you? I want to offer 10% less because my family we always get a deal. We never pay full price. We don't do this. We don't do that. My dad said I'm an idiot if I offer full price. I can't do it. I'll never do blah, 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 blah. Or I want to look at homes that are 600,000, even though my approval is only 550 because home sellers are overconfident in pricing their prices too high. We have to continue to control the narrative with our buyers and with our sellers. That's all that this means. You have to get ahead of this. You have to know what's going on. You have to see the articles that are there, and you have to have these discussions with them. You have to be having these talking points. Those slides that Jeff shared, share them with the seller if you want to. Share them with a buyer. Bring them onto a Zoom call and walk through them and show them where the percentages are. Show them the amount of foreclosures. Show them that, Mr. Buyer, even if foreclosures do become a huge thing, even if crazy something happens and foreclosures become a huge thing and prices and everything crash, they would have to crash by $50,000 or $60,000 to make up for the difference in the interest rate, because they're anticipating the interest rates are going to go up probably 1 to 1.5%, somewhere in that range. And a 1% interest rate hike is probably in the range of about $250 a month, between $225, $250. 1 to 1.5% is more like $250 to $300. So that means that the price of the home has to drop $50,000 to $60,000 and crash by $50,000 or $60,000. And even then, guess what? You're still paying the same for the home, number one, and you can afford less home. So you have to start controlling that. Make sure you're having these conversations. So this home prices or sellers being overconfident. This is also something that we're seeing some, not concerns with, but we are seeing sellers that are overly confident in their price and wanting to run it up the flagpole to see who salutes. So how do we discuss that with them? Number one, you have to have the confidence and the belief and the attitude. We talked about that about a month and a half, 2 months ago, about attitude and energy that you're bringing to the table. You have to have the energy to walk in and be able to convey the information like this, like that, and have the talk track about this information, how it's not really true, or the foreclosures, that's not really happening, or yes, that home did sell for that much, but that does appear to be a 1 in a million buyer or an anomaly, but we can try it. I just need you to understand. So my position, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll continue to mention it, as we go through this shift in the market, no matter how drastic, small, whatever this swing is, and how it's going to affect certain homes or certain listings, you have to be strong with these sellers. You have to be able to tell a seller, Mr. Seller, here's what we need to do. We need to price the home in the range of where the value of the home, because we don't end up determining the value of the home, the buyer is. If you try to determine the value of your home for the buyer, we're going to lose out and miss out on a bunch of buyers. Let's just say we have a home and the value should be in the 750 to 770 range, 740 to 770 range. We probably know it's going to sell higher because of the location, because it's on the water, because this, that, the upgrades, the updates, everything that's there. The seller wants to try it. Well, everybody tells me I'm crazy if I don't get 800 for this. So I completely understand that, Mr. Seller, but let's look at it from a different perspective. We have buyers that are sitting down with agents just like I am, going through MLS and Zoom and showing properties and looking at this map, and they're seeing your neighbor that's under contract for 725, and they're seeing your other neighbor that sold for 765, and they're seeing the homes that are further up the canal and further down inland that sold for 689, 709, 715, 749. They're seeing all of those. So if a buyer looks at your home and says, I want it, I'll do whatever it takes, and you have it priced at 800, 810, 820, we've already taken some of the power out of that buyer's hands. That buyer does not get to determine the value anymore. You determined it for him. The buyer looks at it and says, wow, look, all the homes are between 720 and 765. They want 40, 50, $60,000 more for their home. That doesn't leave me any room for an appraisal gap. That doesn't leave me any room to cover over. That doesn't leave me any room to go over the price. I'm already a little uneasy. That's a pretty big gap. I don't feel that confident in it. But if we decide to price it in the 750, 760 range, 769, 759, whatever, if we price it in that range where the value should be, we are telling the buyer that, hey, here's a valuable product for you. Please get emotionally attached to it. Wow, that's a great value. They're not being greedy. They're not being overconfident like this article. They're not doing everything that everybody else is doing. They're probably a little more fair. They start to get emotionally attached. They see the price at a reasonable price. They see the value that's there and let them determine how much more valuable it is. We are proving time and time again that when we take this kind of approach of pricing it in the range where the value should be, that the buyers are determining it's worth more and offering more. And when they're more emotionally attached and they determine the value, they're more willing to pay that value, paying over the appraisal value, over list price, waiving appraisals, whatever that case is. They are more willing to do that. And we're seeing it over and over and over again. But when we take that power out of their hands, we start to lose. They don't pay the whole entire gap over the appraisal from list price to what they offered. They don't waive their appraisal contingencies. The first thing that comes up on the inspection report, they get a little scared. They get a little uneasy. They're already less attached to the property because they had to pay way more than they wanted, and they're already uncomfortable waiving the appraisal or whatever gap that they agreed to pay. Now there's inspection issues. Now their lender is asking for 5 million documents 2, 3, 4 times in a row. The same thing over and over again. They're worried about their financing. I've got great credit and my income is fine and I have no issues getting a loan. But when I was going through the process, I was even just uneasy. I'm like, I wonder what the hell are they going to find? Why do they need that? What's going to happen? So they're already uneasy through this whole thing. Then they order the appraisal. By the time you get to the appraisal, their parents have already told them you don't overpay for a home. Their friends have already told them, wow, you paid that much more for it. Well, I'm happy for you. I hope you get what you want. Their wife, their husband, their kids, or whatever, they're all telling them these things that are just slowly detaching them from that outcome that they initially wanted. Now the appraisal comes in lower than everybody expected. And the gap they said they would pay isn't enough to cover that gap. And they have a choice to make at that point. They have the ability to walk away. Or they have the ability to say, well, I mean, if you lower it to that price, we'll still consider it. Not we will move forward, we'll still consider it. They're not as attached. So different perspective, different way of looking at it, different way of trying to get the buyer. And when we work, 1% a mortgage rate can kill a deal. Oh, that's perfectly right, Mike. So when you're looking at pricing a home and positioning a home, that's a different way of approaching it. Yes, we can put the price up there. But it's very difficult right now, in my opinion, it's very difficult to underprice a home in this market. We've seen people do it. We've seen people put a property up. It's a $300,000 home. They put it up at 200, 225. And guess what happens? They get a bunch of, hundreds of offers, 50, 100, 150 offers. I've seen it. I've seen them do it on a bank-owned home. I've seen them do it on a resale home. They do it intentionally. But they get a lot of offers that are unreasonable, that are the buyer saw it at 200 and their agent said, well, it can't be much more than that, the buyer thinks, so they offer 225, and that's nowhere going to get the deal done. So it's hard to underprice a home right now, but we can still overprice a home. The home will sit, it will not sell, and then they're going to be asking us why the home hasn't sold. So different approach, different way of thinking. You're going to see a lot more of this So position yourself, tune in, review the slides that Jeff's had, really read these articles and see what this really means. And if you want to have a talk track about it, just let us know. We're happy to discuss any article you read and why the stats are what they are. So I'm going to transition from here talking about listings and the listing process. And from there, I'm going to get into the listing agreement. So talking about the listing process, and I've had quite a few people that I've talked with in the last 2 or 3 weeks, most of them newer agents, getting opportunities for listings, reviewing this process. So I just wanted to review it with you briefly. I'm not going to go in depth into every single little step, but just kind of review it with you briefly because they know these steps and we've covered them again. So we're going to touch on them. Our process, our Beggins listing process, it's a bulletproof listing process, is made up of all the P's. You start off by prospecting. I'm prospecting for business. Once you find a prospect that says they're ready to list their home, you can pre-qualify that prospect. We have our listing pre-qualification script. We get to asking them questions. We get to repeating and affirming their answers. We're getting an opportunity to build rapport. We're getting an opportunity to mirror and match their tonality, their words, and understand them a little bit more, see what kind of personality they are based on their responses and their answers. So we prospect until we find a listing opportunity. We pre-qualify that listing opportunity to make sure we have a good seller. We then preview the home because we cannot price the home properly until we've seen it and we've walked in it and we've touched it, felt it, seen it, heard it, smelled it. We can't do that until we've previewed the property. We can't price it until we preview the property. The preview, just a reminder, not your opportunity to tell them about the ugly yellow wall, not your opportunity to tell them about all the clutter and family pictures, not the opportunity to tell them they need to remulch the entire yard, they've got to pressure wash this. The preview is your opportunity to connect more. We're in alignment. I'm with you. Ray, great home, great layout. You got everything people want. 4 bedrooms, 2,500 square foot, 3 full baths, den up front. Yep. He goes, well, what if they ask me, what should I do? Well, those are things that we'll discuss because it's really going to be dependent on how we position a property on market. So yeah, those are definitely things that we'll discuss. Let me get through all the pricing so then we can discuss that to see how we're positioned it. But absolutely, we'll make sure we have that full consultation out on the table. So we're just going through preview, alignment. That's all this preview is about, connection. We don't want objections. No objections whatsoever. And the other thing we don't talk price. We don't talk numbers during this time. Because what's going to happen if you talk numbers and you don't know that they've already been interviewing people and you say a number and you've got a number in your head, but they had a number in their head. The guy they interviewed made them feel like that number in their head was the right number. Your number doesn't match theirs. Well, that's a waste of time. I don't need a presentation with them anymore. You leave, you do your pricing, you call to confirm your appointment, and they say, hey, sorry, Chris, we decided there was somebody else. Whoa, what? I didn't know you were in. What? You lost them. That's why this is bulletproof when you do this right. So we prospect, we pre-qualify once we have one, we preview. Once we preview the property, then we go back and we do the pricing analysis. Put the whole pricing analysis together, then we do our presentation. Presentation, we go back, follow our listing process, follow our listing presentation, using all of the things that we already know, all of the questions we already asked them, repeating and affirming, walking through the process, pricing analysis, your SPA, and your cost estimator, put it out on the table. Once they decide that they will list with you, then we do the positioning. Yes, I think I will list with you and I'd like to do it at this price. Wonderful. If we're going to be listing at that price, here's the things that I would like done. I'm willing to list it at that price if you're willing to put a new roof on, replace the AC, paint the house, redo this, redo that, move this around, declutter, move that out. I'm willing to go at that price. But if you're not willing to do any of those things, my confidence level wanes. So the more confident I am in the property, the higher my confidence is with pricing the property. We can still list there, but I just need you to understand my confidence level will start to go down with everything that you're not willing to do. And whenever you ask me, why is my home not selling? I'm going to say, Ray, Mr. Monahan, remember the discussion that we had about those items that I asked you to do and the confidence in the price? So right now, the only issue that your home selling is either these items or the price of the home. Which one would you like to address? We've already had that set up. It's already there. That's already an expectation that the conversation is going to happen. So that way everything is all set and clean all the way through. The other thing that's not listed on here that you're going to do through the process is you're going to prospect for an appointment. And once you get somebody that's ready to, that says they want to list, you're going to set an appointment to pre-qualify them. Great. You want to list your home. That's awesome. I'm very happy to hear that. Let me tell you a little bit about how I handle every listing opportunity that I have. And we're going to walk through the process. I need to ask you a few questions, which we can do on the phone now, or we can schedule another time. Once I ask you those questions, I'm going to have to come out and take a look at your home. After I've seen your home, and only after I've seen your home and my hands and ears and eyes on it, am I able to properly price the home. Once I have all of that information, I'll be able to come back and sit down with you and present all of my findings. And now that you're happy with all of the findings and you have all of the information you need to make a decision, we'll be able to properly position it on the market so we maximize the value and get you the most amount of money. And that's how that talk track goes with me. That's how I handle every person that says, I say that same thing nearly every time, whether they're a good friend, whether they're a person I've never met before, or whether it's a family member. I don't care. I do the same thing because I want to have an expectation. I want them to know that I am the absolute best thing that's ever happened to the business of real estate. And you're going to refer me to everybody that you know because I'm awesome, not because I'm your son, not because I'm your friend, not because you know me or I'm your neighbor. That's why I do this process the same way, no matter what, because I want to be referred because of how amazing and awesome and professional I am, not just because we have an acquaintance. But anyway, so when you're doing that, you're going to confirm your appointment. So I have a prospect and I set a time to pre-qualify them. Shoot them a text message or a phone call, whichever way they communicate. Hey Ray, I just wanted to confirm our appointment later this evening for our for those questions I wanted to talk with you about. Does 5 o'clock still work for you? Great. Had a point there. Now I have the preview. I've set that. The morning of. Mr. Monahan, thank you very much for taking a call. Will you still be available this evening at 5 p.m. for me to come by and preview your property? Depending on how he answers the phone, I'm mirror and matching and doing all those things, but I'm confirming the appointment. I'm taking that opportunity to try to build more trust, more rapport. Now I preview, now I do my pricing, and I'm supposed to come back for my presentation. So what do? I set the appointment for the presentation and I confirm the appointment. Ray, hi, how you doing today? Great, me too as well, blah, blah, blah. We're ready to come back this evening. Are we still good for tonight at 7 o'clock for our presentation? And then we come back for the presentation. So how many times did I touch base with this person? I prospected. I confirmed an appointment to pre-qualify or pre-qualified them right away. I confirmed an appointment for the preview and then previewed. I did my pricing. I confirmed an appointment for a presentation and then I presented. And we're already there doing the positioning. So before I tell them what their property is worth, before we get to positioning and I tell them what their home is worth, I have 7 opportunities to build trust, to get them to like me, to know me, to trust me, to know that I know what the hell I'm doing and I will put their best interests ahead of anybody else's and that I work for you and I'm a professional. 7 opportunities to do that. Which one is better? Taking this process or taking the opportunity where, hey, Chris, I'm ready to list my home. I need to know what it's worth. Great. Can I come by tonight at 7? I'll be over there tonight at 7. I'll bring over some numbers and gives. You know what? Hey, I'll even pick up a bottle of wine or some beer. I'll be over. And we show up and you tell him the pricing and you tell him his home is worth 25 to 50,000 more less than what he thought it was going to be worth. And I don't care who you are, you've lost. You've lost the rapport. Because in that moment, there's a detachment from you as a real estate professional. Because now all of a sudden, they don't like what you said and they don't trust you because it doesn't align with what they said. All of a sudden, you're from a different tribe. You're the tribe that thinks my home is less. You're one of those realtors. But when I went through this process and I built the rapport and the trust and the professionalism, and I show up at the door and we go through and I tell you that your home is worth 50,000 less than what you thought it was based on the numbers that are here. I'm showing you the numbers, not telling you what it's worth, showing you where the value is, and you're going to determine that. You may not like what I said, but you trust me because we've built that rapport and I've proven to you that I'm a professional and that you can like me, know me, and trust me as a real estate professional, not just from our regular life. So that's the difference between following this and just doing what any normal person might just do. There are three basic reasons a home fails to sell: price, condition, and marketing. Some agents price high and then drop the price until it sells. Mike, I would even go to say that there's really only, our presentation says there's only two reasons that if a home isn't going to sell. It's price and your motivation to sell the property. Because price is really the only condition. If there's conditional related items on the home, they can be adjusted by the price. And marketing, well, the market, let me let you in on a little secret. Everybody pushes the same button and put it out to Zillow, Realtor, and all that. Everybody pushes that same button. That's the majority of the marketing. Now, the things you are going to do: knock on doors, hold open houses, call all of your sphere, pitch it in front of here, let the entire neighborhood know that it just listed, get on social media, create some ads. A lot of people are doing that too. So marketing is not a reason it's not going to sell. 99% of the people are starting online. Marketing is not the reason it's not going to sell, especially if you're with us. Condition, would the condition be the reason it doesn't sell? If the price is too high, and you can fix that by lowering the price. So really, and why we say it's price and motivation is because if they're motivated to sell, they're going to be motivated to reduce the price or fix the condition. So it's really not about the condition. We have to overcome the motivation of the seller or the price that they want to be at. That's the only thing that we're discussing is price and motivation. Because condition can be overcome by motivation or price. You can't really overcome price by condition. If you overprice the home, even if it's the absolute best home out there with the best condition that's out there, if you're $50,000 high, you can't overcome that. You're going to have an issue with the appraisal. You're going to have an issue with buyers. You're going to have an issue, but you can overcome condition with price. You can reduce it $50,000 if it's a really crappy condition. You can put it really low, and buyers will come in and determine how much it's worth to them. That's the difference. You can do slightly higher if you have a price adjustment in place. That's a great point, Chuck, and I'm glad you brought that up. So one thing that we do, one thing that you can do, if they want to go pricing really, really high, if they want to price it, like let's in this instance that I was talking about, want to price around 759, 760. Let's say they wanted to price it at 790 or 795 or 800 or 810. Up front, negotiate a price reduction on the listing agreement. Get them contractually obligated to reduce the price. Because if you do that, that shows that you have a motivated seller. And what did we say? The only two things we need to address in making sure that your home sells is the price and your motivation. If I know you're motivated, I'm willing to try a higher price because we're going to address the price down in the listing agreement. We can put that in, and it says, if the home is not sold within 30 days of marketing, the price shall be whatever. Pick the number. In this case, if he wanted 810, I'd say the price should be 800. If the home is, or 15 days. Like what I do, this is where the power comes in. The spa on the bottom left corner tells absorption rate, how fast the market is absorbing homes, the market rate. If a home is selling, if it tells me that I have a 0.5 month supply of homes in that section of the neighborhood and in all of Apollo Beach, Riverview, St. Pete, wherever it is, they're matching. And when I go up to the sold homes, over on the right-hand column there where it says days on market, they're all around 13 to 17. Our month supply of homes, our absorption rate is 15 days that this home will be absorbed off the market. So what would we put on the listing agreement? If we price it properly, your home should sell in market time. A home priced at market price sells in market time. A home priced above market price should sell in above market time. So what we want to do is get the price down as close to market price as you can. So factor in a reduction in the price. 810, tell them to go down to 790 to 800, or put multiple ones in place till you get down to the, my goal is to get down to the number of the value where the home should sell. You want to do death by 1,000 cuts, or do you want to do one slash and get you where you need to be? Because we are already showing you this is what the market is, this is what the market was. Your home doesn't have the condition to this, to that, to get to where it needs to be. Maybe we need an adjustment. What if they ask you at preview that they want price now because other agents did? Chuck, it's attitude, energy. that you're going to bring to the table? Well, let me ask you a question, Mr. Monahan. I've got a diamond and I'd love to show it. I'd love to sell it to you. How much will you pay me for it? You got to see it first. Why? You want to determine what you think it's worth to you. And to do that, you need to see the color, the clarity. You need to see it, touch it, feel it, maybe even go and get it appraised, right? So how much would you trust somebody that comes by and has never seen your home, has no idea what you've done? They don't know the cut, the color, and the clarity of your home, but they're telling you what it's worth to you. Do they live in your home? Have they got on their hands and knees and did these floors the way that you did? Do they know that you put those custom closets into your master bedroom yourself? Do they know about the pool out there and the feature and this and that and all the things that do they know about those things? Did they even take the time to ask you those questions? So my point to you, Mr. Monahan, is anybody that they're going to price your home before they've seen it, run. Because it's just a shot in the dark. And they're hoping because it's a tract home and there's another home kind of like it. But is your home nicer than the home down the road? Well, I don't know. I've never seen it. Oh, so you have the same principles that I do, that you need to see the home before you can determine whether it's worth it or not. Understand. Thank you very much. I appreciate having the open dialogue. So yes, a lot of people are doing that, coming with price right up front. So what I want you to do, and this is one point where we will lose. One point where we'll lose is right here. The first 3 steps sometimes we'll lose. And here's why. You didn't set the expectation that you weren't coming with pricing when you went to the preview. You showed up to a preview without them knowing it was a preview. You said, great, I can come by. You came by to look at their home. They were expecting pricing because everybody else did it. You didn't do what everybody else did. And you didn't have pricing, and then they call you back the next day and they told you they went with somebody else. They were more prepared. They had pricing. When they didn't even realize that they shot themselves in the foot, they weren't more prepared than I was. They were less prepared than I was. They were just more anxious because they don't have any other business on the market and they wanted to show up and get the business. Let me tell you how I handle my business. This is how I handle every listing opportunity that I have, Mr. Seller. Let me express to you what's going to happen. I need to first ask you a few questions. After I've asked you those questions, I need to schedule a time to come by and see your property. If I can't see your property, touch it, feel it, smell it, hear it, I can't properly price it. It's kind of like a diamond. Until I see it, I don't know what the value and worth is. Only then can I properly price it. So I'm going to come by and do a preview of your home. Only once I've previewed your home, I'll be able to put the pricing together. After that, I'll come back and present to you all of my findings, and we can discuss together. You have to set that expectation up front. If you don't set that expectation up front, you will lose because they think you're a miracle worker and you could just show up and say, push button, $450,000. That's what they think. And that's what they expect because other people are doing it. Change the expectation, tell them why, set the expectation of why you're a professional and what you're doing. You look at the home and the seller believes it's worth $35K over real market value. Other agents agree with them. And that's fine. I'm not telling you to object with them, to object the seller. What I'm telling you to say is, Mr. Seller, in this market, as crazy as it is, I'm okay with listing a home where you think that value is. I just need you to understand. Look at what I showed you. Here's this, and this. The value here, the highest sold was this, the lowest sold was this. Which one is most like yours? Which one is least like yours? So we're walking them through that process on the spa, going through. That's why we use the spa. Like we get over almost every single one of these objections you guys are throwing out there by following the process. If you into as many of these, and it's much easier to they come over these objections because you think it's 35 grand. That's great. I completely understand. I completely understand why you would feel that. In this market, it's very understandable to believe that we can get more than what the market would bear. I just need you to understand that based on the comps that are there that we went through, that you said this one was like yours, this one was most like yours that sold, this one is like yours and it hasn't sold, and they're trying much higher, and we will be lower than them. I get that. So I need you to understand that this is where the value should be based on what the buyers are going to see. And as long as you understand that this is where it should be, I'm willing to list it wherever you would like right now because of the market. But if your home does not sell in down here in the bottom left corner in this amount of time, I need you to understand when you come to me and ask me why my home hasn't sold yet in 7 days, that number one, this is not a normal market. And number two, the only reason your home will not sell is because of the price. That's what I need you to understand. The marketing is going to be on point. The opportunities are going to be on point. I'm going to do the open houses. I'm going to talk to every agent. I'm going to call. I'm going to this. I'm going to telling about all the things you're going to do. And if your home does not sell, then the only reason is going to be the price. As long as you understand that and you build, that's where the attitude and the energy comes in, showing up and telling them this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to be. I'd love the opportunity to do that. Yes, I'm willing to work with you. I'd love the opportunity to put $35,000 more in your pocket. Give me that chance. I just need you to understand if it doesn't sell for that, the only reason will be the price. Are we on board? Do we understand that? Yes? Perfect. Let's do that. You have to be able to say that. If you can do that, doesn't matter. Circle back to your value presentation. So you should say up front all these steps. How I handle my business. That's right. That's what I do. I let them know this is how I handle these steps. This is what's going to happen. This is the process. This is what we're going to do. To the point of, please, okay, so I'm going to tell you something that a seller just told me, and just said to the agent that he partnered with, because she was out of town, and she asked me to go to handle this person from the get-go. So I started off on the conversation on the phone with the doing the pre-qualification, set up a preview. From the preview, I did all the steps. The very first thing this guy says to me after introducing and going this, he goes, I'm just going to say this and we're just going to get it out of the way. I cannot even imagine paying a broker 6% in this market with homes selling the way that they are. First thing, holy damn, man. Like, and if you don't have the right kind of attitude, you're going to lose it right there, because you're going to tell them, well, I'm again this, and we're the biggest, and we do that, and we're selling. But none of them. Hey, Mr. Seller, I completely understand why you would see that. Completely understand that. That makes perfect sense. And as we go through the next couple of steps and we get to that the presentation where we talk about pricing, we'll be able to discuss that further, and you'll understand why positioning and doing these things a certain way. We'll be able to work through that and make sure that you get everything that you need out of this. Does that sound fair? That we'll address that at a later time? He goes, yeah, absolutely, that's fair. Okay. So then what does he say at the closing, in front of the closer, in front of the other agent? He says, I'm just going to say this. This guy points to me and says, walked in here, please forgive me, with his balls dragging on the ground like he's Mr. Hotshot, telling me exactly what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, with an attitude and an energy that just took over the room. And I'll be damned if that's not exactly what happened through the entire process. He was impressed. It was his way of saying, man, this guy is good. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. He told me everything that was going to happen. We expressed it all up front. And guess what didn't happen from that point where he mentioned commission all the way up to the closing? Guess what didn't happen? Didn't say a word about commission, because I took control. I took the attitude and I took that energy from the point of, this is the way that it is. This is what's going to happen. If we do this, this should happen. If we do this, this should happen. Yes, I'm perfectly fine with listening to property like this to get that, but understanding this and that, da, 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 da. And if we do this, we're still going to get that same outcome, but we have a much better opportunity. We'll get better buyers, da, da, da. Expressing and explaining and answering all of those questions. So when you do the things the right way, these do not become objections at a different time. Most of the time, you're still going to have people that want to object to certain things, but that's when you've lost it. Remember, others do quick, dirty CMAs. I've attended a listing appointment with an agent in another company who winged it, came in with a net sheet, but now I realize what BS that was. I'm happy with this method. This listing process method gives me the chance to say no. I don't want to work with them. Professionalism, love it. Absolutely, you don't have to work with every seller that's there. So once you've done that, then you're going to get to the point where you need to cover your listing agreement. And we got about 20 minutes. That should be enough for me to breeze through this. I'm not going to get really, really in depth with it. I'm just going to give you some brief explanations. The brief rundown of, if a seller wants to explain all of these points on the listing agreement and all these lines, that's what I'm going to run down and do. I'm going to point them out to you and show you what they are. Let you know how I would explain to them. If there's any questions, go ahead and chat them in. Mr. Seller, this is an agreement between yourself and Century 21 Beggins Enterprises. So just understand that you're listing with Century 21 Beggins Enterprises, and I'm the facilitator of this opportunity. My name is not listed here. I'm just going to be the representation. You are giving us the authority to sell the property beginning on this date and ending on this date. These dates are important that you put them in. So I wouldn't say this exactly to a seller, but for us, get this signed and dated for today. Whatever the date is. Well, they're not going on market for 2 weeks. Okay, get the Stellar MLS waiver form for 2 weeks. Get this dated today. Start the listing agreement today and end it in 6 months or whatever that time is. But they're not going to go on market for 2 months. That's fine. Start the listing agreement today, do an MLS waiver for 2 months, and take an 8-month listing. Because once it goes on market in 2 months, we'll have 6 months to market it. Why do we want to do that? Because it says right here that we authorize and give the broker exclusive right to sell the real property beginning on this date. If you put this out for 2 months from now, we have no opportunity to sell it beforehand. Look, I know we should be putting it on the market, testing the market, getting the most amount of buyers, giving the market the opportunity to drive that price up. But some sellers don't mind selling if it means they don't have to do showings. They have a little more clarity. They didn't have to fix this, do this, put that on there, paint this, move this out. So get the opportunity to sell the property immediately and start pitching it to the people that you know. We can't publicly market it, but you can pitch it in the office. You can pitch it to people that you know, maybe potential buyers, and maybe you have an opportunity to sell it. But if something happens, here's the other thing. What if they sell their property before that? This is exclusive right to sell, which means that no matter how the property changes hands, we get paid, unless it's like foreclosure or something like that. So even if they have a friend who sells who wants to buy the property, we still have an agreement that says that we would get paid. Now you can start negotiating with them at some point, but you at least have the power to say, well, our listing agreement says we're owed 6%. So get it signed today. That's what this does for you. It gives you that power to start selling it today and get paid today if somebody does buy it, no matter when they go on market. Mr. Seller, again, this gives us the authorization to sell the property for starting on this date and ending on this date. This is your proper address, correct? And then that's your legal description. Can we discuss the personal property that you plan to include? Now, here's where I point out. Now, we have all of the appliances in the kitchen. We have the washer dryer. We have the curtains. We have the TV wall mounts, and we have the water softener and things of that nature. Those are all in a listing, in the contract as being included for the most part. So of those, do you plan on leaving all of them or taking some of them and then list them all here? What about the chandelier? What about the fans? Do you want this? And then explain to them why or why not that may or may not be a good idea. Occupancy, this property is or is not currently occupied by a tenant. Currently, you live in a home, so we're marking is not. This doesn't mean it's occupied. It means occupied by a tenant, so it's not occupied. Here's the price that you and I have discussed that you've determined you would like to start marketing the property at, and we're willing to offer it to any of these offers of compensation, any of these types of buyers. So this is what we're looking at. Mr. Seller, we usually aren't dealing in any of this, but if you did decide you wanted to offer seller financing or you have an assumable mortgage, we can put that in there. Are those terms that you would like to address? But I do remember you saying that you need to sell this property. You can't do financing when we were talking before. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Great. So we're not going to address either one of these if that's okay with you. Mr. Seller, are you willing to offer the buyer any closing cost compensation to make sure that you get the right buyer? In this market, I don't think it's necessary, but in markets where you are competing with a builder, like if you're in a neighborhood and the builder's still selling, offering 3, 4, 5%, you probably need to make an offering. And what this does is says, the seller tells us, I'm willing to sell my home at $400,000 if you bring me a buyer, and I will pay the buyer 3% in closing costs if you get me $400,000. I'm willing to do that. That's what this listing agreement says. So when we get the offer at $400,000 asking for 3% closing costs, and he says, I'm not paying those closing costs. So, well, our agreement said that you would. Can you tell me what's changed? And we can work with them and try and hold them accountable to that. The MLS delay waiver is invalid. It's called the owner's authorization to temporarily exclude MLS entry, or Stellar MLS. I'm pretty sure it's the owner's authorization to temporarily exclude. Broker's obligations. Hey, Mr. Seller, we're going to make diligent effort to get your property sold. That's what we're going to do. We will place it on the MLS. this means right here, this part right here, why we're going to sign this other form is that it has to be on MLS within 1 business day of any public marketing, which is why I can't put a sign and I can't put any posts or anything like that up until it's ready to go on MLS. But in the meantime, I can shop it around with the people that I personally know. Broker's authority, you authorize me to market the property on the public. Public marketing includes this. Now, Mr. Seller, we will put a sign on it. And if you want to sell your home, let me just say this, please do not check one of these boxes. I understand if we have a circumstance, but if you want me to sell your home, please don't check one of these boxes. This first box says you can put my property on the internet, but I don't want the address listed, so I don't want anyone to know where it was. And the second one says I don't authorize you to put it on the internet at all. That's basically what they say. 99% of the people are starting shopping on the internet. If you check one of these boxes, you're handcuffing me and making it very difficult for me to sell your home. You'll probably know upfront if this is going to be an issue before you even get to the listing agreement. Here's the thing: I can't market my property. I can't put a sign. I can't this because I'm a judge. I'm a professional athlete. I'm an executive with this company, and people can't know whatever that is. That's perfectly fine. But we don't run into this a lot. You understand there's going to be a sign in the yard, and if he does check either of these boxes, you're going to have them initially here. We're going to obtain some information about your mortgage. I just want to know what your payoff is so I can get you a proper cost estimator. We've already done that. Here's the document. We've got a comparative market analysis. Now, Mr. Seller, we will use a lockbox on this property. My lockbox is an electronic lockbox that tracks everybody as they come and go. So I've got a really clear knowledge of who's been in and out of the property. It's great for documenting. We do not present verbal offers. A verbal offer is as good as the paper that it's written on. Yep, that's right. It's not written on paper, so it's not worth anything. Even worse than the paper it's written on, worth nothing. So we won't present any verbal offers. Excuse me. So, but we can also say, well, we'll withhold any offers once you go under contract. I don't recommend that. I think we should be able to field some offers once we get under contract if somebody else wants to get an offer in. Most important part here, Mr. Seller, we will act as a single agent to you. As a single agent, we offer 2, 3, 4, and 5 listed right here, which you've probably already discussed with them, but 2, 3, 4, and 5. Loyalty, confidentiality, obedience, and full disclosure. Those sound pretty serious, right? And when you're selling the most valuable asset that you own or ever will own, don't you think that the person representing you should offer those? Virtual office websites exist. There are certain offices out there that they allow people to put comments and put their own valuations on there, determine what they think it's worth. We're saying, no, I'd like you to check these boxes and say, no, I do not authorize them to put any comments about my property or put their own idea of the valuation on there. This is not Zillow. That's not a virtual office. Zillow is a marketing agency. Your obligations to me, Mr. Seller, you have to cooperate with me in carrying out this agreement. You recognize that I am subject to certain MLS obligations, so I may have to tell you no on certain things because if saying yes may cause me to incur a fine. You give me some keys to the property so I'll have access. You're going to inform me if you get a mortgage on it, lease it, or do anything else that encumbers this property. You're going to hold me harmless for stupid people tricks. And what that means is we will have a lockbox on the door. There are agents that will see this. There are buyers that will see your property. And these buyers and agents will drive up to your home, will walk on your property. And even if they have a scheduled showing, can come in and might accidentally break something. You're saying that you're not going to hold me responsible for their stupid actions. That's what this whole section says. You're going to perform any reasonable acts to comply with FIRPTA. If you're a foreigner, you're not a foreigner, are you? Good point to have this conversation. Also in the property disclosure, you can bring that up. You're not a foreigner, are you? You do have a U.S. passport. You do reside in the U.S. You are a citizen. So you can ask those questions. Make legally known disclosures. I do have this document, which we'll review shortly. Here's your seller's property disclosure. And please consult with any professionals you deem fit. I'm a real estate professional. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not a tax accountant. I'm not an attorney. And I'm not anybody in the environmental field or anything. So please make sure you talk to the right people about that. For all of these things, you are willing to compensate us as such. We're going to collect these. I usually skip through this not quickly, but I don't need to call this out when there's not an issue to it. So if it's not been an issue, I'm not going to create it to be an issue. If they've not discussed it, I'm not going to call a ton of attention to it to make sure, well, we're going to charge you this and then we're going to charge you this. So this is the compensation section, which says what we will collect for marketing the property and then what we will collect and offer to a buyer's agent to sell your property. So, and then I continue on. But this is an exclusive right of sale listing agreement, means the only way we're due compensation is if it sells. But my marketing will procure buyers from all different avenues. It may procure a buyer who wants to lease with an option to buy your home or just option to buy your home. And we may procure a buyer that wants to lease your property. This just says if I procure a buyer and I'm obligated to present any and all offers I receive, whether it's a lease offer, an option offer, or a sale offer, I would be compensated if you decided you wanted to accept one of those terms. If and only if your only obligation is to accept and sell the property. You don't have to lease it, you don't have to this, but my marketing will procure a buyer. If the Queen of England comes to the United States and says, that's the property right there, I want it, I need it, I'll take it, I'll pay them $20,000 a month for this next year to make sure I have it. Would you, Mr. Seller, accept that offer? Yes, you would? Great. This just says how I would be compensated if that were to happen. And without this line, I would get no compensation. And don't you think if I was able to procure that offer for you that I should be compensated for that fairly? Yes, I agree. We are due our commission if we sell the property. And at the end, there's some people that like to do shady things. So sometimes buyers will come to you and say, hey, I know your listing agreement is up. Why don't we just wait? And we will we'll close on the property or contract on it after the listing agreement is up. Save you money, save me money. If we procured that buyer and that happens, we're still due a commission because we're the procuring cause there. We can retain up to 50% of any and all deposits, and we will cooperate with other brokerages that are out there to sell your property. Here's a single agent notice, which we've already briefly discussed. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are the most important things there. We need to sign that so we can acknowledge you're a single agent. But if somebody else from my office, Century 21 Beggins Enterprises, wants to come and view your property, my broker, remember I told you my broker is the person who you are in a contract with. My broker cannot represent two parties on the same transaction as a single agent. They cannot be a fiduciary to two parties who are going to be potentially at odds with each other. We would automatically transition to transaction broker. It's a seamless transition. You won't even know the difference, but legally I cannot be your single agent and say that I am. Conditional termination. If you decide to cancel this listing before the end of the termination or sale, we can charge up to a $2,000 cancellation fee. Please understand that this is only charged for people that waste our time and drag us through the mud with no intention of ever selling your property. I don't understand why they would do that, but I know you're not someone who's interested in doing that. Dispute resolution. This talks about how disputes could be handled. And if you would like to just agree to go to arbitration instead of worrying about who's going to sue who and how that's going to happen, what the time frame is, we can agree to go to arbitration up front. And there's some miscellaneous terms here. That's basically it. This is where you would put in if you were going to reduce the price after a certain time, just write it in there. This is where, look, before you agree to reduce your commission, a couple things. Before you agree to reduce commissions from 6% down to 5 or whatever, number one, let's talk about that first before you do that. Number two, why not give them an offering that says, well, here's what I can do for you because I like you so much and we're friends and we've gone through this together. If I'm able to procure the buyer, I'm willing to do this for 5. I know you said they were going to do it for 5%. They were going to do it, and we already talked about what's it really, but I'm willing, if I'm able to procure the buyer, I'm willing to do it for 5%. Or I'm willing to do it for 4%, whatever you think you have to do to get that deal and make sure, but you're not reducing the commission. Look, we double side, it's less than 10% of our deals. It's like 5 to 7% of our deals as a company, not as individuals, as a company. So it's even less when it's the individual. So it's probably not going to happen, but it's something that you can throw out there as an offering that gets them to feel a little better that you're giving them something. Law of reciprocity, I give you something, you give me something back. I give you that, you give me, whether it's a counter offer of some sort or whatever, you give me, I give you something, you give me something back. You would put that in here as well. And that is it. That's the listing agreement. Pretty straightforward, not a whole lot to it, pretty basic. The thing that really gets people tripped up most of the time is this section here about the compensation and section B and C, the 50% of an option, 10% of a lease. We do get people that get tripped up on that. But he's not going to lease it. This doesn't say he has to. This just says that our marketing is going to get people that from all walks of life who may make an offer. And if I bring it to you, I'm obligated to present all offers. That's my duty. I have to. And if I present you an offer you'll accept, don't you think I should be compensated? That's all this says. I think that's very fair, don't you? If you have to, cross it out. If you have to, cross it out, initial it, and then come down here, right in this box, pending broker manager approval. That's it. If you have to make changes to the listing agreement, make them. Just put in here pending broker approval. That way you're not obligated to it. It's pending having management and broker approval. Can we do 2.5 on co-broker side without permission? What about home inspection form and seller disclosures? Is that part of signing process too? So the seller's disclosures I typically always have with me at the presentation. So the listing agreement, the seller's property disclosure, those are documents I've already delivered at the preview. So I told you I wasn't going into depth with everything we'll do during that process. But yes, I bring every document they're going to sign at the presentation, I bring to the preview and the seller's property disclosure, and I leave that with them with a nice fluff piece about me and how great we are. So I do really bring that, and I do go over the seller's property disclosure. And I want to get the listing agreement signed there if I'm there, or I'll just pull it up on Dotloop. And I'll pull it over and you can click through and sign. So as I just went over it with you, you can just click through and sign. I'll send it to your email, pull up your laptop. Here's my tablet, whatever. We'll do an in-person signing session. So I will want to get that done. The seller's property disclosure tends to be a little bit more tedious. So I say we do have the opportunity to do this digitally if you would like. But if you want to review it now, we can also review that now. Most of the time, I would say 8 out of 10 times with me, they're wanting to do it right in front of us and ask questions. And I'm okay with that. I'll sit there and do that with you. I'm not sure what home inspection form you're mentioning. The company disclosure form. That's another one that I sent them. I do have some other company disclosures. There's nothing contractual about them. It just says my company does this, 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 and this. And I usually have those. I'll put those in the packet with them and leave them there. They can sign them in person or they can sign them on Dotloop, either way. So yes, that's part of my signing process, but my focus is always on the contract. Focus on the listing agreement and the contract, getting that done. That's where all of my focus goes. And then the other ones I'm going to add on top of that and discuss afterwards. So yes, the listing can take a little bit longer. Is there a taped listing presentation online to watch? Yes, I don't know about taped. I don't know if there is one that's actually, I know they're recorded. So I don't know about visual. I don't know, but I do know there are audio listing presentations that you can watch and listen to on Beggins Agents and on Google Drive. I reviewed a home and checked comps, believe the market value was 650. Another agent said 700 at 4% and did nothing but put a sign in the yard and list on MLS. No agent showing or open house. It closed 7 weeks later at 617. What did I learn? Don't suggest a listing price that they requested. How do you offer listing agreement before discussing price? The listing agreement. So this is a Mike Ferry process. Preview, Mr. Seller. After I do my preview and walk through and I take my notes and I'm aligning with them and connecting with Mr. Seller, I just wanted to leave this with you. Here's a copy of all of the documents that we'll be reviewing and discussing after my presentation tonight. Please do me a favor and read through these. I'm also going to send you a short video to watch that explains a little bit more about what my company does. Does that sound fair? Yes, good. It doesn't need to have a price in it. I just need them to review it. Why? Because in the process, we'll talk a little bit about the process. In the process, when I go back and when I'm sitting down and I'm calling to confirm my listing presentation appointment, Mr. Seller, thank you so much for taking the call. I just wanted to confirm our appointment for this evening at 5 p.m. Yes, we're all good to go. By the way, did you have an opportunity to watch that video that I sent you? Or also, the other thing that we're asking them is, did you have a chance to look through those documents that I left with you and review those documents? Were there any questions that you had right out of the gates? Yes, there was. I saw that there was this, 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 and this on it. That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm writing it down right now. I'll make sure that's the first thing we address when I walk through the door this evening. Was there anything else? Yeah, I noticed the price was blank. Absolutely, the price was blank. We'll be discussing that this evening as well. I'll have all the research and everything to show, and then you and I will be able to sit down and determine the price and how to position the home. Was there anything else? What are we doing there? getting every objection out of the way. They're telling me most every objection they're going to have. And I'm not answering them. I'm not having to overcome any objection. All I'm doing is saying, that's a great question. That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm writing it down right now. I'll make sure that's one of the first things we discuss this evening. Was there anything else? I'm getting it out of the way. So the listing agreement, leaving it with them is really so they could review it. Don't forget to send a 6-minute video before the appointment. Yep, mentioned that. On Beggins Agents, there's a recorded listing presentation. Yes, there is. Good, awesome. 9:30, September 29th. 2 days left in the third quarter. Set your fourth quarter up for you. If you need anything, as always, please reach out to us. Have a great day, guys.